I try to, if I know that an officer is coming off an overnight shift, I try to get that person in and out and go home and go to bed. Okay, we have the YouTube live up and going. For the record, this is State of Georgia versus Luis Arturo Villafranco. Mr. Villafranco is charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05560 with committing the offense of criminal trespass. He's charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05561 with committing the offense of terroristic threats or acts, and he's charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05562 with committing the offense of aggravated assault. Mr. Villafranco is present. He's being represented by Attorney Keith Wood. The state is here being represented by Attorney Cheryl Freeman, and Officer Golden is present. Ms. Freeman, you may swear in your witness and present your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Golden, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony provided in the matter of State of Georgia versus Luis Arturo Villafranco will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
My name's Robert Golden, and I'm employed with Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Clayton County Police Department?
Just over 2 years.
Were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on March 27th of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
On that date, did you respond to 2821 Mount Zion Road?
Yes.
Can you please tell us what type of establishment is that?
It's a banquet hall. They host like quinceañeras, birthday parties. It's an event hall.
Okay. Why did you respond to that location?
We responded to a call there in reference to a male refusing to leave. And that same male was also yielding a knife and threatening partygoers and the security on scene at the banquet hall.
When you arrived at the location, Officer Golden, who did you speak with?
I spoke with Mr. Juan. He's the head of security for the business. The business is La Mansion. It's the Spanish name. He's the head of security. That's who I spoke with. He's the one who called 911.
Okay. And what did Mr. Juan tell you that happened?
He said that there is a Hispanic male who had shown up.
Judge, I'm just going to throw out an objection there as to hearsay.
Overruled.
Go ahead, Officer Golden.
So yeah, I responded to that business. I met with Juan, the security. He advised that there's a Hispanic male there. He refused to leave when Juan asked him to leave. At that point, the male pulled out a knife, was acting belligerent and threatening the people that were attending the parties on both sides, and was ultimately threatening security.
Was this male still on the premises when you got there?
No, he had left in a car with an unknown man.
Did you speak to any other witnesses at the location?
No one else wanted to speak to law enforcement that was on scene.
You indicated that this male was making threats and pointing a knife. Can you be specific as far as who did he point the knife at? And what
yes, he directly pointed the knife at Juan, the head of security, and was making gestures with his hand to his throat and threatening him, saying he would harm him. Just making threats at security that he was going to cause bodily harm to them.
When this male made the threats against Juan, was Juan able to say if there were witnesses who heard those threats?
He said that there were plenty of people present around him when this all took place. But again, the people that were there, no one wanted to cooperate with police. No one else wanted to come forward and say anything.
Okay. Did any of those people corroborate that there was a male running around with a knife?
Yes, multiple party goers.
You know, she asked, Ms. Freeman asked the officer, did anybody corroborate, anybody talk to the police? And the officer said no. So now we're just asking the same question a different way.
Judge, I don't believe so. The officer said that no one wanted to give any statements, but I'm asking, did anybody corroborate that someone was running with a knife? I think what the officer is saying is there were people who gave statements, but they didn't want to give their identity. And I'm just trying to make sure that I want to be clear for the preliminary hearing.
And Mr. Wood, for the record, I'm going to overrule the objection. I heard two separate questions asked. So yes. So go ahead, Officer Golden.
Yes. So in regards to your question, ma'am, people that were on scene advised, yes, there was a male acting irate, waving a knife around. But when I asked, would you guys mind writing a statement? Everybody, no one wants to write statements. People, they just didn't want to cooperate, but they did say, yes, there was a male here with a large knife waving around the party hall.
Okay. Were you able to apprehend this individual who was waving the knife?
Sector 4 officers were able to apprehend the offender in a different sector of the county based on the bolo that we put out, based on the information provided me from Juan, the security officer.
And just because we're recording, when you say the bolo that was put out, can you explain what that is?
Oh, bolo, be on the lookout.
Do you recall what information was placed in the bolo?
Yes, it was Juan advised that the Hispanic male had gotten into a red Chevy truck car, an older model red Chevy. A male had shown up and picked him up. He advised the male that picked him up was not at the party, and that he got in that truck and he went north on Mount Zion. And literally about 10 minutes after I put it out, a Sector 4 K9 officer said, "Hey, I'm behind a car that matched that description," and the rest is from there.
Sir, do you know if a knife was recovered?
Yes.
It was recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it placed into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware of whether or not the person who was apprehended made any statements about what happened?
When I don't know if what he spoke to the units that located him. I don't know what statements he made to them. I know they did supplemental reports that were submitted on this, but once he was brought into my custody, he was just advising stuff about being in federal witness protection, and kind of just stuff that was up in the air that really had nothing to correlate with what was going on.
What can you tell us what those things were that he said?
Yes, he said that he was in a federal witness protection program, and something along the lines of earlier, he had saved a woman from a burning car, and he refused that. Like I said, he refused to answer questions about the incident that took place, the reason police were called. He was just talking about, again, federal witness protection and saving somebody from a burning car and being some type of savior. It didn't really have anything to do with what was going on, but I just documented it because that's all he would tell me.
Okay. Were you able to confirm that the individual that was apprehended was the same person that Juan had reported was running around with a knife?
Yes.
Did Juan do a photo lineup or anything like that?
Just based on the description that Juan provided, and based on the vehicle description and the description of the subject, we were able to determine that was the male.
Did all of this take place in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Attorney Wood?
Yes, Your Honor. All right, so Officer Golden, you've been employed with Clayton County for 2 years, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you responded to this call out there on 2821 Mount Zion Road, correct?
Correct.
All right, and you didn't observe anything that happened there this evening, is that correct?
In reference to this incident, correct.
All right, and do you have any idea whether or not Mr. Villafranco was invited to this party?
No, I have no idea if he was invited to one of the two parties that were being held at the banquet hall.
Okay, and everything that you testified to as to whether or not he was acting belligerent, you don't have any personal knowledge of that, correct?
No, just based on what I gathered during my investigation while on scene.
All right. Now, you testified earlier that no one wanted to speak. You testified that no one wanted to speak to law enforcement officers, but then you changed and you said, well, they spoke to me, but they didn't want to give their ID. Is that correct?
Yeah, no one wanted to give a statement, correct.
No, what you said when you first started was that no one wanted to speak to law enforcement officers. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you changed your testimony later, saying when you were asked about corroboration, you changed your testimony and said, well, they spoke to us, but they wouldn't give us their ID. Remember saying that when Ms. Freeman asked you?
They wouldn't give IDs or write statements, correct.
Okay. All right. And so who did he specifically threaten?
Well, he threatened the security guard, Juan. He was the only one that would talk to law enforcement about it. But according to security, he was waving a knife around, yelling and threatening people at the party.
Okay. So you don't know any specific person that he threatened?
He threatened security.
Did he attack security? Did he come at him with a knife, or was he just standing there waving a knife around?
He was looking at security, holding a knife, making threats towards them.
How much distance was between Juan and the security officer?
Juan did not provide a distance between him and the Mr. Gutierrez or Villafranco.
So you don't know if they were like right in each other's face or whether they were at opposite sides of the parking lot, possibly yelling at each other, do you?
No, he said it all took place in the entrance of the banquet hall.
Okay, but you don't know how close they were.
No, I don't have any distance.
Did Juan tell you that he was scared that he was going to get stabbed?
He said he was in fear for his life, that a man was waving a knife in front of him and threatening him.
And did you write that in your police report?
Yes, I wrote that he was in fear for his life.
Can you point that out where it was in fear, where it says, do you have your police report with you?
I do.
Can you tell me where it said that Juan was in fear for his life?
He said his life was in danger and advised he feared that the subject was either going to harm him or other people at the business.
So I'm asking you, where in your police report did it say that Juan said he feared for his life?
It does not.
I'm going to object. I believe Officer Golden just answered the question. And I think at this point, Attorney Wood is just a play on words. Officer Golden read to Attorney Wood what he put in his report. I think he's answered the question.
And And Judge, my response would be, no, he didn't read what was in his report. I asked him to read what was in his report. He didn't even look at his report. And I've got his report right here in front of me.
I have the report as well. And what he just said, I'm looking at it in the report.
I don't see where it says that. Okay, so Judge,
go ahead.
The crux of the argument is that Mr. Golden said he told Juan he was going to kill him, and Juan said that he was in fear for his life. I don't see that in the police report. I see where he says something about Juan advised that he would threaten him and was threatening people inside the business. Says Juan advised the subject, said he would come back and kill everyone. I'm just asking Mr. Golden, where does it say that Juan said he feared for his life? And I don't see it in there.
Judge, Officer Golden's response, and he read exactly what he put in his report. He stated that Juan said he felt his life was in danger. He advised that he feared that the subject was either going to harm him or the other people at the business. That was the response given by Officer Golden, because that's what he has in his report.
Is that in the report, Attorney Wood?
I don't see that, Judge. I asked the officer to tell me where it was in the report. And
okay.
All I got to say.
Okay. Well, I don't have the report in front of me, and it seems like there's a difference of opinion as to what is exactly in the report.
That's all right, Judge.
However, it seems to be a distinction without a difference. There's testimony that your client allegedly had a knife and allegedly waved the knife at least in Juan's direction. And I would believe it would be reasonable for a person to have some kind of fear about that. That's what I'm getting from the testimony of Officer Golden. Now, of course, if this were a trial, Juan would be the person that you would be able to ask those questions of.
I understand, Judge. I'll move on to my next question.
Okay.
All right. So, Officer, just to follow up on a question that I asked, nobody wanted to come forward and assist. That's correct, Officer Golden?
No one wanted to come forward. Yeah, come forward and provide statements and possibly be a victim in this incident. Correct.
Okay. And so after you arrived, you put out a bolo, be on lookout, correct?
Correct.
And apparently Mr. Villafranco was later picked up by officers in Sector 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know how many people were in that red Chevrolet truck?
Yes. The driver and Mr. Villafranco was in the passenger seat.
Okay. And your testimony was that his knife was recovered. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you're saying his knife, who are you talking about? Mr. Villafranco or the other gentleman who was driving the truck?
Mr. Villafranco's knife.
Okay. And how do you know it was Mr. Villafranco's knife?
That was the only knife recovered in the vehicle.
Okay. But how do you know that it was his knife?
You would have to look at the other officer's supplemental and see. I'm pretty sure the other officer wrote in his supplemental, he located the knife on the person.
Okay.
I don't have that supplemental in front of me.
Okay. All right. So did anyone ever take that knife back and show it to Juan Heenan, the security director?
No.
And following up with what Ms. Freeman asked you, nobody ever took the defendant over to La Mansion or to the incident location to get anyone to identify Mr. Villafranco, correct?
Correct.
And no one even took the other driver, the driver of the vehicle. Nobody took him over there to see if anybody could identify him. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we don't even know if we have the correct red pickup truck or the correct person. Is that correct?
You could say that.
Okay. And you mentioned he was saying something about something that didn't make sense about anything. He just refused to answer your questions, right?
Correct.
And he didn't say anything about being a savior. What he actually said was that he was a man of God. Is that not what he said?
Correct. That he was, I'm going to read the sentence. He further advised he was out saving a lady that was in a burning car, that he was a man of God. He refused to answer any questions about what actually happened that night.
Okay. But that's a little bit different from talking about being a savior. Is that correct?
I mean, yeah, out saving people, being a savior, man of God.
Okay. All right. All right. That's all I have, Judge.
Any follow-up?
No, Judge, state rest.
May Officer Golden be excused?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Officer Golden.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Officer Golden.
Appreciate it.
You can be excused. Do you
Thank you,
have
Judge.
any witnesses, Mr. Wood, that you're going to put forward?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any argument?
Just a little bit.
But the state waives opening.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Wood.
All right. Well, Judge, as far as the criminal trespass is concerned, if someone is invited to a location, and he's there attending a party, the person I think that invited him over there is one that has to tell him to leave.
Yeah, don't object. There is no testimony that the defendant was ever invited to the party.
Well,
Hold on. I understand your argument, Mr. Wood. From a criminal trespass standpoint, the testimony that I heard was that he was asked to leave and refused to leave.
Hmm.
And that is when, even if the person was invited, if they were asked to leave and they refused to leave, that's when, my understanding, criminal trespass comes into play.
okay. Well, I'll move on.
Okay, go ahead.
Judge, as far as the terroristic threats, there has to be some type of corroboration with terroristic threats. It just can't be somebody's statement. The officer first said that no one would talk to him, said that no one wanted to cooperate, and only after redirect by Ms. Freeman did he say, well, they talked, but they didn't want to give statements or their ID. Well, to me, that's no corroboration. I mean, there has to be somebody that can corroborate the statement of a threat. He also has to, threaten them with a crime of violence. I mean, just because somebody may be there and waving a knife around doesn't mean he's threatening a particular person. And that would use that same argument as far as the aggravated assault. You have to be in the process of committing an assault for it to be aggravated assault. So, Judge, there's no evidence that he was actually threatening any particular person. It's like, what is the state going to put in their accusation? Did threaten a bunch of random people that didn't come forward? Or, we have to put different names in there. We have to put somebody that he actually threatened, but we don't know anyone he actually threatened except some statements that Juan said, and the officer didn't even know whether Juan was close to the guy or whether he was in his face, whether he was 6 feet away, whether he was at the other side of the parking lot, he said he didn't know. So I don't know how he can make a threat against him. Number one being no corroboration, and number two being there's no evidence that an aggravated assault ever took place. Just having a knife in your hand and waving it around is not aggravated assault, Judge. So that would be my closing argument. So I'd ask you to dismiss all these charges.
Okay. The knife can constitute an aggravated assault, because you don't, in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you just have to have a weapon that, if used offensively, can cause great bodily harm. You don't actually have to stab somebody.
Well, but you do
That's
have
correct, Judge. And just with my argument, and since Attorney Wood has made his argument, and I believe the state gets the last word on it, we're asking that all the charges be bound over based on the testimony of Officer Golden, the actions of the defendant with the knife, believe certainly constitutes terroristic threats based on there were witnesses there. His actions with him waving the knife at the security guard is certainly enough for an aggravated assault. He instructed the defendant to leave the premises several times. He refused to leave. So we certainly think that there was a criminal trespass as well. And so certainly there may be other issues that Attorney Wood can raise in Superior Court, but for purposes of the preliminary hearing, we believe that there is sufficient testimony to bind all the charges over.
From what I heard, I believe there's clearly enough at this low stage for the criminal trespass, aggravated assault, terroristic threats. I think is the one that I had the most problem with. But I believe the testimony of Officer Golden about what Juan said, I don't think it's the best, but I believe at this stage is something to, it's enough for it to be bound over. So I'm going to bind over all the charges. And I think, Mr. Wood, you may have a strong case at trial. Because unless Juan is a great witness, it may be a problem at trial, but it's enough to pass over. So I'm going to bind these 3 charges over to the Superior Court of Clayton County.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. May we be excused?
Yes, you may be excused, Mr. Wood, and have a good day.
Judge, thank you so much for taking me first. I don't deserve that. Thank you anyway.
Well, I try to be fair, because now Miss Freeman's time is going to be taken up with Mr. Rogers and Miss Davis and Miss Pleasant, Miss Hill. So I am going to place you all in a breakout room with Miss Freeman. And as always, I will turn my camera off, but I'll be around.
Thank you. And Judge, take us off of YouTube.